we would say if you're part of our church, join Church Suite, and on that
Yeah.
we've got 2,500. And then we've got different ways within Church Suite of tracking, how engaged are people, are people on a team and in a small group and giving, in which case we'd call them sort of the core, the core part of our church. If they're doing 2 of the 3, then they're committed.
Well, hello and welcome to the Church Office Podcast. My name is Gavin Smith, and it's a joy today to welcome you to our Admin and Ops podcast. We basically love talking about the work of ministry behind the scenes. We love talking about leadership. We've got pastors who are listening, ops people, admin people, and it's a really good kind of podcast, an opportunity to kind of invite guests on and an opportunity to hear and learn from people. And there's such a good work that's being done right across the church in the whole admin and ops area. And today's special guest is James, based at Gas Street Church in Birmingham. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks so much for having me, Gavin. Great to be here.
It's really excited to talk to him and find out a little bit more about his story and his church. And he's got a conference that they're running for admin and ops people. So we want to kind of just, put all of that into today's episode and just kind of enjoy a little bit of time together. So before we jump into the conversation, let me do a big shout out to Gavin and the guys at Church Suite. Just want to say a huge thank you to them for sponsoring the podcast, for getting behind the church office and encouraging us in our resources by, really, being able to bless us in this way. And so we're so grateful. And if you're listening and you've not heard of Church Suite, then I don't know where you've been, because this is a brilliant kind of tool that every church office needs to help them run effectively behind the scenes, from kind of kids and families to a main database, to the rotas, to the small groups, to communication. There's training that sits alongside it, and there's such a help. And I think it serves any church. Even if you're a 2025, this kind of software will grow with you as you go. And it's a subscription-based model. It's all cloud-based, and there's support is brilliant. These guys are trying to make this tool better and better every time I chat to them. So big thank you to those guys and doing that. James, what do you guys use? Are you Planning Center or are you Church Suite?
We actually use both, believe it or not.
Okay, that's cool.
We're big Church Suite fans, but our worship team also use Planning Center. So the integration's a bit funny, but yeah. Excellent tools.
Now, for bigger churches, that kind of like, I've got loads of creative people in kind of leadership roles in the whole worship who love Planning Center. They just love the way it looks. They love the way it kind of all connects together and works. And then you've got the ops people who just go, we don't need it to look pretty. We just need it to function brilliantly. And there's the two kind of contrasting things there, isn't there? Which is good. James, tell us a bit about yourself and how long you've been involved in your church, and a bit about your church. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's James. I've been part of the Gas Street team for 9 years. So my role is the executive lead. So I'd look after all the governance, staffing, finance, organizational side of what we do. We're one church across 4 locations. Right in the heart of Birmingham is our central campus, Gas Street Central. But to, I guess, rewind on the story, Gas Street was planted 10 years ago. So I joined sort of a year into the journey. Tim and Rachel Hughes, our senior pastors, they planted out of HTB Church in London and partnered with the Diocese of Birmingham. So we're a Church of England church.
Yeah.
To see a resourcing church be planted in the city centre. So there were some faithful people at St Luke's, which is now one of our locations, but at the time was basically a parish. And they gave permission for Gas Street to be planted within the area that they're responsible for within the Church of England. Over time, we were sort of meeting in different offices. I think we met in a nightclub at one point. We met in a lawyer office, loads of different venues. It started very small.
Yeah.
But eventually they came across this building on Rightmove. So it came out of the blue, and it's the old gas retort house. So it's right by the canal, and all of the coal across the city was generated in this building and then sent out in the canals to light all the street lamps of Birmingham. So it gave this, I guess, prophetic picture of what we felt the church was going to be, which is light for the city.
Superb.
So actually the coal was generated in the building, sent out to the canals, and then brought light out to the city. So that was 10 years ago that we moved into the building. We've just celebrated our 10-year birthday, and it's been remarkable what God has done over the years. And we, things have evolved and shaped over time. Our staff team has evolved and shaped over time, and
Yeah.
we've opened those locations. So there's Gas Street Central. Then a few years later, the partnership between Gas Street Central and now Gas Street St. Luke's became stronger, and we became one church over two locations.
Yeah.
And there's a worshiping community there right in the heart of the city as well, but a more deprived area. It's a lot of where our missional work and outreach happens.
Yeah.
Then we started Gas Street South down in Solihull, which is about 20 minutes
Yeah.
south of the city, back in 2022. And then 2 years ago now, we started Gas Street Longbridge, which is in the west of the city. So yeah, we're one church, four locations, and then have different church plants and things across the city and beyond. We actually have one in the Netherlands as well, which is a story for another time. But
I love that. I love that. And so the kind of strategy to kind of go out into different locations across the city, is that born out of just space and capacity, or is that a sense of actually, no, we've got this real vision to go out and have these satellites?
Yeah, so our vision would be light for the city, and the way we do that is by gathering and scattering. So
Okay.
the idea of people come along, they gather together, they encounter the presence of God, they worship, but then we go and we scatter and we're sent out. And actually, when the church was planted, the mandate was around being a resourcing church to bless sort of the wider region of Birmingham rather than just our local area.
Yeah.
But also the Bishop David, who was the Bishop of Birmingham at the time, he had this sense around us never being a church for comfortable. So he said, "Be a church
Yeah.
for the uncomfortable."
Yeah.
And actually, this sense of really peddling church planting and making sure we're reaching both the Birmingham region and beyond. And I think in terms of the locations and church planting, that's something we're really passionate about. We feel like it's one of the most effective ways of church planting, but also I think the location model enables us to accelerate essentially the church planting model. So, if you start a church plant, for us, that's sort of quite independent. So it would be, we send some people, we send some finance, we give some templates, some resource, and then it's an independent entity and off they go. But what we've been able to do with the locations is actually have a centralized approach where a lot of the responsibilities are shared. We're sort of responsible as a senior leadership team for all the different things going on, which means the location pastor who comes in to lead that location can really focus on pastoral care, spiritual discernment, really thinking how to contextualize the vision and values within that local area. And the hope is in time that we'd see church plants coming out of those locations. So it actually maximizes how much church planting can happen out of there. So it's an interesting model. It's definitely had its tensions. How do you keep those vision and values consistent across four different sites in four very different areas of Birmingham? And then how does that relate to our church planting strategy? But it's been amazing, and the life that God's poured onto it has been remarkable.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's just mate, that sounds fantastic. And there's this kind of multiplication that's almost kind of built into the model, isn't it? As you're not seeking to kind of just sit tight and that kind of comfortable church, but you're actually always pushing those boundaries to think, right, where do we go next across the city? I mean, Birmingham is an interesting city, isn't it, with so much diversity and just in terms of languages. Like someone said to me, there's over 100 different languages spoken across the city, and taking new ground and planting new churches. I mean, that does take some serious work and sort of coordination, mate. You guys must be. Are you thinking through that strategy centrally as that kind of executive lead? Are you working with the senior pastors to kind of, right, how do we do this?
Yeah, that's right. So our senior leadership team, we call them the exec. Our job is essentially to execute the vision. So there would be Tim and Rachel as our senior leaders, senior pastors, and then we have two associates, Nick Drake and Ali Herbert, and then myself. So we would be sort of that, like I say, executive senior leadership function. And then we've got an amazing team, heads of department who all take different areas of responsibility, and then those location pastors. And I mean, as you say, the vision is broad, the vision is big, and you can't centrally coordinate everything. You've got to be able to delegate and allow different leaders to carry different parts of the vision. Absolutely, in terms of diversity, Birmingham is a really diverse city. And again, one of those benefits of the location model is that we're able to withhold the vision and values, but then really contextualize them
Yeah.
where they are.
Yeah.
We've got an amazing group called the Imago Dei Group, who've
Yeah.
really helped us think through diversity, and how we'd be really intentional about reaching the city. Actually, Birmingham is a really, really diverse city, and we've managed over the last few years to really grow in diversity, and we've got 95 different nations represented now
Wow.
within our church, which is absolutely amazing.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Really key part of Gas Street Central, so our central campus, is our Farsi community. So a few years ago, we had this random email for an amazing couple called Marie and Janet, and they've led this church, and they wanted to find a new home. And together, they're single, they're faithful, they've really looked after this community for many years. They're in their 70s now.
Wow.
And they came and joined our community, and it's been honestly one of the most biggest blessings, actually, seeing those Farsi speakers, many of them Iranians, come and be part of our church at 11 o'clock in the morning at Gas Street Central, and seeing them integrate with our church. It's been fantastic. So no, that's definitely been a key part of the vision and the strategy.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, there's so many kind of different questions I've got in terms of just the model, and I love the being kind of exposed to it. So a lot of your kind of like kids work, youth work, are you doing that kind of stuff centrally? Are you kind of one charity as well that's operating in different locations? Yeah.
Yeah, great question. So, Church of England, so we have PCC who operate as our trustees. So the sort of central parish, the one that we were sort of planted into, 3 of our locations would sit under that. So that's Gas Street Central, St. Luke's, and South. And then 2 years ago for Gas Street Longbridge, that was like a new model that took some sort of negotiation and figure out how it was going to look. But we've got a service level agreement in place where essentially another entity, another charity, delegate the operational running to the other PCC. So their trustees are still in position. They look after key things like safeguarding and insurance and things like worship times that under Church of England rules they have to sort of sign off on. But everything else is delegated to the St. Luke's PCC, who then delegate the running to our exec team to outwork. So yeah, it's one charity essentially holding the bulk of operations, but it's 2 boards of trustees that we report to and make sure that things are running effectively. And then we've got some things in place that sort of, I guess, provide the synergy between the 2. So there's one meeting a year where all trustees meet together from both entities. We have a joint standing committee, so there'll be representatives from both PCCs onto that, and there'll be other things in place just to make sure there's a healthy relationship between the 2.
Yeah, I love that. That's great, isn't it? And in terms of your kind of operational staff that you've got on site and working with you alongside you, what have you got in terms of that team wise?
Yeah, so our staff team would have about 55 people on it, which I know seems large, but within that, there's, I guess, 4 churches represented, a lot of part-time staff, and then a lot of volunteers, sort of who would be on staff team as volunteers as well. So we've got about 6 or 7 clergy team, so that's they get a stipend from the Church of England. And then, our full-time equivalent on staff would be around 32, 33. So that's sort of the setup. And then in terms of, you asked earlier around sort of kids and youth and how that works, we've played with the model a few times of what's best. Do you have centralized teams? So like kids pastors at locations that all report into sort of the central kids pastor. And, to use another example, all of our worship pastors reporting into Taku, who leads our worship at Gas Street Central. Or do you do it where actually you have the location teams reporting into the location pastor? So originally we would do it that they reported into the centralized person. And to be honest, at the start, that was the right decision because we really needed to keep the vision and the values as those locations were established. What we realized over time is the locations need to become more autonomous. They need to have more say over their vision and contextualization. So we shifted it. All the line management has now moved over to the location pastors, and essentially they've become more senior in our structure to be able to really outwork the vision they feel at their location, alongside the exec team. So that's how that works. In terms of operations and things like comms, those are still centralized across everywhere. So,
Yeah.
we'd have a centralized comms team who would look after the comms for the different locations. Specifically to operations, we've got an amazing team. So we've got a facilities manager who looks after, I guess, high level strategy of buildings, health
Yeah.
and safety policies, and that's outworked then by an ops coordinator at each location.
Yeah.
We've got a head of HR, Lizzie. She's been amazing. She joined the team just over a year ago now, just looking
Great.
after staff team and culture, making sure we're following policies and procedures correctly. Because actually, what you realize is everything that happens with the staff team then gets
Mm.
worked out within the
Yeah, it does.
church.
Yeah. Yeah.
An amazing finance team who keep things faithfully moving forward, making sure everything
Yeah.
is done appropriately. And then, like I said, that sort of wider ops team across locations who also have centralized responsibilities. So looking after things like one of our location ops leads looks after things like safer recruitment, or another one
Yeah.
might look after our Sunday administration across locations whilst also having location
That
responsibilities.
kind
So
of
that's
thing.
how we've structured things.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess some of that is based on kind of individuals' gifting and capacities and time they've got, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and also, I think it's naturally evolved over time. So it's
Mhm.
not like we've sort of started with a piece of paper and gone, okay, what
Yeah,
should
let's
we
do
do
this.
and outwork it. It's just like over time, someone's moved on, or this new responsibilities come in, and we need to have someone to look after this, or actually this change has happened in another department. We need a bit extra administrative support there.
Yeah.
What we've realized actually is the more the church has grown, the more all areas of ministry need that administrative support to
Yeah.
release and enable and empower them. So that's been an interesting sort of evolution over time. Is
Yeah.
whereas I guess start at Gas Street when I began, staff team would have been 12, 15 people, absolute
Mm.
max, and we'd all basically be doing everything. It's now
Yeah.
over time you need much more defined responsibilities
Yeah.
and doing what.
Yeah, that kind of clarity as you kind of grow, and yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Mate, that's fantastic. And so how many kind of are you getting in terms of attendance on a Sunday across all locations? What are you sort of reaching?
Yeah, so we'd have about 1,500 people on a Sunday
Mm.
across the different locations. We have about 2,000, 2,500 that would call Gas Street home. It's always
Okay.
hard to know how to define that figure, but we use
Yeah.
Church Suite, as you've said. So, we would say if you're part of our church, join Church Suite. And on that,
Yeah.
we've got 2,500. And then we've got different ways within Church Suite of tracking, how engaged are people,
Yeah.
are people on a team and in a small group and giving, in which case we'd call them sort of the core,
Yeah.
the core part of our church. If they're doing two of the three, then they're committed. And if they're doing one of the three, then they're congregation.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously people sitting on Church Suite who aren't necessarily connected in, but we're really trying to sort of funnel through to be more committed and
Yeah.
core members of the congregation. We've also then got a mailing list which goes out broader. There's as part of being a resourcing church, there is a call on us around the beyond, and there's lots of wider ministries that sort of are connected in with
Yeah.
Gas Street, things like the Orchard Women, Worship for Everyone, Gas Street Music. So a lot of people want to hear around that stuff, but it's a challenge to say to our church, you might be getting our monthly MailChimp, but actually weekly church week emails is the one that's going to really connect
Yeah.
you in. So
Yeah.
you get those comms really clear.
Yeah, mate, that's great. And I know Gav's heart in Church Street is for it to become a kind of discipleship tool, isn't it? And like you're saying, as you track people through those different kind of stages of being core and those who are more on the fringe, it is helpful.
Yeah.
And you do just have to become a lot more deliberate, don't you? And your structures have to be a lot more clear as you get bigger and as you grow.
Mhm.
And you guys have clearly done that over a decade then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's not always easy. It's definitely been at times a painful part of the journey is things change. I've had, I think, 9 different job titles in 9 years. So we we're reaching a point where there was a restructure sort of, every 6 months to a year of different
Yeah.
roles. Those are good moments. They're growth moments. They're moments when you can look at that piece of paper again and go, actually, what do things look
Mhm.
like? What did things look like? And it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean what was wrong. It just means the
Yeah.
requirements have changed. Things have settled. I think you do reach a size, and we have now where things are templated enough,
Yeah.
where we use the analogy of it's almost like cruise ship now, and
Yeah.
our locations would be more like speedboats within the cruise ship. So actually,
Yeah.
they want to be much more agile and pivot
Yeah.
quickly, but actually, it takes longer for our sort of larger ship to pivot in time. And we've got to be conscious of that. But how do we structure to enable the locations to have as much autonomy and independence as they need in their sort of earlier stages of growth? But actually, the larger ship is still, needing to take a bit more time. So things have
Yeah.
definitely settled. But yeah, we would be very open and have been open to rethinking things like
Yeah.
meeting structures and things like line management, roles, how we operate as a team, the rhythms of the year,
Yeah.
and actually just thinking this was the best way to do something, but actually, is it now? And
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the key questions we sort of keep asking is who needs to be involved in what conversation. So a
Mm.
few years ago, Christmas was my favorite part of the year. Okay, I love Christmas.
Yeah.
I love everything we do. We open the doors, we see thousands of people come in. It's a big event, so I love all that sort of stuff like production and stage
Yeah.
management. I was really, really involved. Got to a point about 3 years ago, and the team under me were like, "You've got to back off, basically. Like, you've got too much other stuff to do. We've got this. Like, leave it."
Yeah.
And so you've got to ask yourself those questions
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
where am I doing something where actually I don't need to be involved in this anymore, and I
Yeah.
need to sort of pull aside in order for other people to
Yeah.
take that on. And as I have, actually, Christmas has then taken a different direction, or other
Yeah.
people have had their say. And that's been so that's a small example, but
Yeah.
on the big picture, you've got to constantly be asking where are we now compared to where we were, but also where
Yeah.
do we want to structure in order where we want to be.
Yeah.
And we keep doing that every few years, just going
Yeah.
actually what is it that we're going after, and who needs to be in what position in order to really. And again, it's God doing the work.
Yeah.
It's God making it happen, but He partners with us, and
Yeah.
therefore it's a good question to be asking constantly: is God, where do you want us to position us as a church? Where do you want to position us within the organization, within different roles? And
Yeah.
that's something that we're trying to do actively.
Yeah, that's great. And mate, give us an insight into your team then, in terms of I mean, you've got a lot going on, lots of different locations, and there are different leaders who are serving in lots of different way. How have you guys kind of sought to kind of build relationally together?
Mm,
And I know as a team gets bigger, when you talk about sort of 55 people,
mm.
what have been some of like the really good structures and stuff you kind of just, events or things that you put on that builds people together relationally?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, our staff team, they're an amazing group of people, and it's always finding the balance between, um, we're no longer a bunch of mates making it up, which it was like in the early
Yeah.
days. But equally, we really don't want to be this corporate machine that
Yeah.
forgets it's a church,
Yeah.
that is way too sort of business orientated and
Yeah.
system process, and
Yeah.
we move too far. So we're we're in this moment where we are really investing in what I call the mechanics.
Yeah.
How we operate as a team, our internal communications, our training, our appraisals, the things that actually, from a HR perspective, are really good processes and
Yeah.
procedures. They're sometimes quite formal, but actually they do release life and ministry, and God really
Yeah.
does use them. I do
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But also, along with investing in mechanics, investing in mates. So you've got mechanics and mates, and actually really doubling down on that relational connection as well.
Yeah.
There are a few ways that we do that. We have a staff retreat every year, which is a key time of connection. We go away to these amazing cottages in Derbyshire, right by a lake, and we just hang out for a few days. We have some content, we have loads of time to worship and pray,
Yeah.
but mainly we just hang out and we eat food and we have some stupid games and we have a great time. We went to the pub one night, and it's those times when you're just sort of away from the office, away
Yeah.
from what's going on, and you can just really get
Yeah.
to know people.
Yeah.
So staff retreats, staff socials, but the other thing we've just launched is community groups. So at one point it was feeling like the departments were quite siloed. So you just sort of have the comms
Mhm.
team, the ops team, or
Yeah.
kids team, and all of that sort of stuff. And people knew their department really well, but actually, and particularly, the transition of our team, is quite high in terms of we have like interns or worship school join us
Mhm.
for a year and then they leave, and then you add
Yeah.
that into fixed term contracts or
Yeah.
people moving on, and actually you have quite a high turnover. How do you really build intentional relationship across departments rather
Hmm.
than just within your areas of work? So we launched staff communities, which is essentially once a month you gather together with a bunch of different people from the staff who aren't in your department, who probably aren't in your age range, and
Yeah.
you chat about life. You chat
Yeah.
about what's going on. You pray together, and we're really building in that intentional space. So it's both really. It's the relational investment, but also this is where Lizzie, part of our team, she's been amazing, and the previous post holder as well. She put a lot of these systems in place that from a corporate point of view would be quite standard things like
Yeah.
appraisals,
Yeah.
but in
Yeah.
church they're not the most common thing to have until you
No.
grow to a size where you really need them, because
Yeah.
actually the bigger you grow, the more you do need them in order to have consistency, but also be able to have time to really invest in the relational side of ministry as well.
Yeah, absolutely right, isn't it? Yeah, the relational part is so key, isn't it? And yeah, mate, that sounds great. I love it. And as executive lead, you've been in that role for, you kind of joined staff 9 years. Was it something for you in your journey that you've gone, okay, I want to be involved in ministry, and it's kind of led you to the executive leader, or has there been points where you've discovered gifting that you might not have even was
Mm.
aware that you had?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that kind of discovery of gifts and grace. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, no, I definitely never had it in the plan to work for a church. That was not my intention at all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to a long story short, I ended up doing the internship at Gas Street 9 years ago. Probably not. Well, I would have ticked a box on a form to say I was a Christian, but I definitely
Okay.
didn't have a relationship with Jesus. There's a
Yeah.
few health issues going on at the time, and ended up coming along to Gas Street, and one of the worship pastors sort of caught me and got involved in the production team through sort of my connection with her, and then we went for a coffee in about the October, I think it was,
Mm.
and she called me that night and she said, oh, earlier wasn't a coffee, it was actually an interview for an internship. And I was like, okay, what's that? And she's like, you basically work for the church for free for a year. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I couldn't work or anything at the time, so it felt like a good thing to do. And essentially, through that intern year, gave my life to Jesus,
Yeah.
received healing, which was absolutely incredible and a
Yeah.
really key part of my testimony. And yeah, basically fell in love with who Jesus is,
Yeah.
and he transformed my life. And then I carried on basically. And like I said, there's been
Yeah.
different roles over the years, doing different things. But I think what's amazing is actually looking back now, I'd be like, there is absolutely nothing else I'd rather do. Like
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
fairly resolved, and I'll be working for the church for the rest of my life, God willing.
Yeah.
And I feel this real call to ministry. I feel really called to releasing teams and structures in order to see the church grow and flourish. And I couldn't have wrote this job description I have now, but
Yeah.
just over time, you sort of build things into the I guess the repertoire of what God's doing in and through your life. So,
Yeah.
looking back before my role at Gas Street, I was heavily involved in events. I worked for a care company doing sort of rotors and management of people. And you just start to place all these things together, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I now understand what, or I even one time I was in a treasurer of a local church at one point. I have no idea how that ended up. I wasn't even part of the church. But now you're like, oh no, that was really, really important
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
part now of my understanding of what I do. So, yeah, absolutely. I think my experience at least is you just keep going. You just
Yeah.
keep saying yes. You sort of walk in this obedience to Jesus and his way and his will, and he sort of sorts out the rest. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds so simple and um, in many ways uncomplicated, but actually that is just
Yeah.
how it's worked. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it's been hard, and I've really had to learn some lessons. And I was really young joining the team, so even that, becoming fairly senior in the team, when I've joined as probably the most junior you could have been, that's been an interesting transition. But again, sort of God's grace in that, and the relational side building up with the team. has been a really, really key part of that journey.
Yeah, I love that, isn't it? It's so true, isn't it? That the things that I was involved in early on in, coming in my 20s are things that you really now really draw on from
Yeah.
experiences or things that you learned. I spent a year working for the Welsh government in the kind of youth policy team, thinking, I have no idea why I'm here, but you learned so much about a large organization, about how to develop policy, how to bring people with you, and how to kind of really serve people. And there's stuff I look back on and say, yeah, God, you used that. And you're right,
Yeah.
you kind of walk forward saying, right, where can I serve? Where can I be a blessing? And similar portfolio to you, really. I'm kind of managing the staff, the building, the finances, the program,
Yeah.
so all of our strategy around our thinking of kind of how do we move forward. We're, there's a small exec team like you that are leading that, and it's an absolute privilege to serve, isn't it, in that role. Mate,
Yes.
give me one of your highlights then. Like what do you love about your job? What if there's one aspect that you didn't want someone to take away, what would it be?
That's a good question. One aspect I wouldn't want someone to take away. Um, I love people. I really love people. I do it for people.
Yeah,
And I think often in the operational, you know, outworking of ministry, people can forget that actually that's what it's
yeah,
all about.
yeah,
And or more people's perception of you is that you've forgotten what it's all about.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think
yeah,
if you cut me open, I just, it's all about people for me.
yeah,
That's the heart of it. So I think the best parts of my job is when the team need help, basically, and they come and they say, just help me figure this out. And it
yeah,
is, it's probably not so much this spreadsheet anymore or this system doesn't work. It's more about them and how
yeah,
they're wired,
yeah,
or um, actually, I need to really look at my days, or how do I be more flexible in my approach to work, or how to, help me navigate this tension or challenge with someone within the church or
mm,
even within the team, and
yeah,
being able to set up structures to see those different individualized needs of people collectively thrive. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that's what I feel particularly excited by. I
yeah,
wake up in the morning and the ability to solve problems on behalf of other people, but especially when they're a bit more pastoral in nature or nuanced. I
yeah,
think that's the stuff that I'm like, okay, if we can set someone up for a win, wow, like look at what God can do through that.
yeah,
I think, when people feel devalued or undermotivated or stuck, it actually really limits what they're able to
mm,
do. So anything I can do along with the team, to really release them and structure things well, that's what brings me real joy. I also
yeah.
do love the events, those event days where you've got, everyone
Full
turning
on.
up and it's crazy. But those moments again where it's about people, the team all come
Yeah,
together, you sort of forget your job descriptions for a moment. Everyone's on tea and coffee or putting
yeah,
chairs out or what needs to happen next. I think those are really, really key moments where you go, oh, this is such a privilege to be part of what God is doing.
yeah. It's great. Yeah, and there are some misconceptions about the roles that we play. I think, somebody thinks I'm sat behind my desk doing
Mm.
spreadsheets, policy all day. But you're right. The actually what you want with a kind of operations manager or lead in this area is someone who is out there with people, who is out there chatting, that's building community, that's serving, that's do you have everything you need to thrive in this? Is there anything I can do to help you and encourage you? And I love the part of the job where we're connecting people to the kind of bigger picture.
Yeah.
So when we
Yeah.
connect, the ministry that people are working in our staff teams or volunteers, when they see the impact and how it connects to the gospel and the gospel moving forward, there is so much life in that, and there's so much joy in that. I spend a lot of my time going, thank you, thank you, thank you. Did you see, you were on the camera team and this is the difference it's made, or
Yeah.
you were on our welcome, and
Yeah.
spotting those things and being able to celebrate with people is like
Mm.
just one of the best parts of the job. Um,
Mm. That's
so
good.
it's a privilege, isn't it? Tell me your biggest challenge then. I mean, you kind of alluded to it a little bit in terms of change and
Yeah.
restructuring, and I guess there's some pain in all of that. But
Mm.
is there anything in that challenge that you think, yeah, actually that's been quite a difficult part of it?
Yeah, no, So people's the greatest joy, and I guess people is the greatest challenge. You know? Um, when
Yeah,
people move on, that's really hard. When people have different opinions, I have really deep friendships with a lot of the team, and that's a really hard part of the job. Is
yeah,
when, and particularly, when the shift in my role happened a few years ago, that things changed. So
mm,
you'd probably be the one afterwards in the pub having a quick debrief on the day. You're not
yeah,
necessarily in that space anymore,
yeah,
and that's okay. That's important, and actually people need that space sometimes. But
yeah,
I think how to navigate personal friendships and life alongside work
yeah,
relationships and
yeah,
management basically is,
yeah,
is
yeah,
is really, really tricky.
yeah,
My wife Becca, we've been married 3.5 years. She'd be really close friends with a lot of the team. So again, just though how we together as a couple navigate that, so she feels she can be authentic to the friendship she's in, but also me as a husband feeling supported by her
yeah,
in some of those things going on, when times are tougher in the team and things like that. So, yeah, no, I definitely say that. And I also think, just going back to what you're saying around the encouraging people to like see the difference they've made,
yeah.
um, I think one of the challenges I face is acknowledging my own contribution
Okay.
sometimes.
Yeah,
So we do this annual publication which looks back at the last year of everything God's done, the stories, the testimonies, and there's a page on kids, there's a page on youth,
yeah,
students, and every one of our team essentially would have a page that they're responsible for, that
mm,
they've sort of outworked. And I have two main emotions when I look through that publication.
mm,
One is like, wow, this is
yeah,
amazing. Like, look at what God has done and look at how he's used our team. And I'm just so grateful to be part of it.
mm,
And the other emotion, to be honest, is a bit of a niggle of like, oh gosh, I've done none of this.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Always the role is so broad,
yeah,
um, and oversight. And it's really hard to connect the dots between what you've
yeah,
done, the policies, the procedures, the systems, the structures, and then the outworking of day-to-day ministry.
yeah,
And I think, I've got this phrase like look back to look forward. So
yeah,
almost we do it all the time for the people,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
how do I do it? The challenge is how do I do it for myself? How
yeah,
do I look back over the last month and just write down sort of 5 things that God's done through me, in
yeah,
me, that I'm grateful for, that actually I have made a direct impact towards? Because otherwise it can be so high level and so strategic that you sort of distance yourself a little bit from that day-to-day impact and vision. That's just
yeah,
so important to keep reminding yourself of God's faithfulness in. So no, I think the challenge definitely is people, but also that connection to the outworking of the vision and
yeah,
how you just see God's favor and grace in your own life through it. I think
yeah.
that's been an interesting learning of the last few years.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, mate, isn't it? And I think, yeah, I do think a lot of admin and ops people who are in our roles can feel quite lonely at times
Yeah.
because you're not essentially part of a huge team. You know, you're
Mm.
part of the exec team, but the exec team is so busy that it's really quite functional, isn't it? And it's quite intense when you get together. And you're right, you can lose the impact that you are making and the way that you are serving because yeah, you're not in that book that that saw 200 kids come to this event or whatever, but you made that event safe by all the
Mm.
work that you did.
Yeah.
And so you do have to kind of find that joy in not being seen, don't you? And
Yeah.
that's part of the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
In
And I
it,
guess the security in your identity in
yeah,
Jesus, that
yeah,
it's actually not about you, and
yeah,
it's all about him and what
yeah,
he's doing. And actually, our team work incredibly hard, and they'll know my heart when I say this. It's not about what they've done; it's actually about what God's done through them.
yeah,
But equally, I think there is something really, really important about recognizing your part to play in part.
yeah,
God chooses to partner with us; He doesn't need
yeah,
to, but He chooses to,
yeah,
and therefore, yeah, a discipline of thankfulness, essentially, of what He's done in and through us is
yeah.
key to keep sustaining into ministry and beyond.
Yeah, it's great. And the Apostle Paul got that right, didn't he, to some extent, when he said, It's not the grace of God. I worked harder than all of them, but it wasn't the grace. It wasn't me. It was the grace of God that was at work in me. And so we know any impact that we have is because of grace, because He's at work and working through us. And you're right. I like it at the end of 1 Corinthians 15, where none of our labors are in vain. It's just what we're doing and what we're contributing. God sees it, and there's something eternal about it as well in that sense, which is great. So mate, it's really encouraging chatting to you, but and just finding out a little bit more about your role, finding out about the church there just sounds absolutely fantastic. And I love the way that your church has kind of embraced this idea of being a kind of resource church, and being so willing to serve those churches around us that are doing such a good work, but they're not doing it to maybe the scale or the complexity of what we are. And your heart and generosity from the team there to serve others is something that I've certainly noticed. And you've been running conferences to serve people. Mate, do you want to fill us in about what's happening in June with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Monday the 1st of June, we've got something called the Engine Room. And this was birthed really out of, we've run conferences over the years for worship and for emerging generation and this. And I just really felt this pull around. We've got to resource the administrators and the operations people. And so we call it the Engine Room. And the idea is to invite anyone and everyone who is involved in operations, facilities, finance, HR, paid or volunteer, PCC secretaries, treasurers, trustees, senior leaders, anyone that just wants to know about sort of how the church functions day to day to come and equip them. And the way we frame it is like an open home. So it's not like we're here to train you. It's hey, we're here to learn as well. We're figuring this out. Come along, connect. Like you say, being in operations can be quite lonely. Come and meet people who are facing the similar struggles, the similar difficulties, the similar things going on, and have a day to connect. So we've got a few speakers this year, including yourself, Gavin, which we're very happy to join us.
Glad to come. Thank you.
To look at different things like, how to manage volunteers, how to lead people who are slightly different from us, how to set our roles up for longevity and sustainability. So those are some of the themes that we're looking at, particularly this year. But we really encourage anyone who's involved in any sort of level of operational leadership in church to check it out and come and hang out for the day. We would love to see them there. So it's gasstreet.church/the Engine Room if people want to sign up.
Yeah, great. So let me do a shout out. So I'm going to be there with James and looking forward to it. And it's just such a great central location for people to come and travel in. So even if you're outside of kind of the Birmingham region, then it's an easy place to get to. It's a great opportunity, as James has said, to gather as administrators and ops people to come meet other people. Is some of the best part about it. We want great content, but actually to sit with someone and to pray with someone who knows exactly what you're feeling, exactly what you're faced with in your church, is a joy, and it's an opportunity for us to kind of serve one another. So please come along to that 1st of June. Mate, is there a cost for it? What do you guys normally charge for these?
Yep, so there's two options. There's a £10 donation towards the cost of running the event, but there's also free tickets available. So whichever that churches prefer.
Mate, that's great. That is super generous. So please go and check out that at Gas Street, their church website. That'd be fantastic. Well, if you've got any questions for us, if you've been listening in and you think, I'd really love to speak to James about their model, or there's something that you'd like to come and say, hey, church office, can you answer this question? Or you've got an idea of something that we can cover on the podcast, please do reach out at questions@thechurchoffice.co.uk. We would love to get connected with you and serve you if we can. James, mate, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on the podcast and sharing. Mate, you're doing a great job, and look forward to meet you in person, mate, in June.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gavin. It's so good to be here.
Bless you, mate. Bless you. Thank you for listening to the podcast today, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.